Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. As you can probably tell by the way I'm squinting at the camera, it's a lovely sunny day here today, and this week marks the spring equinox here. And today is forecast to be our warmest day so far this year. All the plants are greening up quite dramatically and putting on a lot of growth, which is lovely to see. We're on the opposite side of the tunnel from where we were last week when we were talking about the umber fillers. And I've had a lot of nice comments about the last video, so thank you. And since you guys have requested that I do more videos like that, so today we're going to be looking at another group of flowers that could maybe sometimes be a little bit overlooked, but they are so important if you're going to grow a selection of cut flowers this year, no matter on what scale, that you include at least one of these flowers in what you're growing, and that is filler flowers. So the first flower we're going to look at is Hesperis, also known as sweet rocket. And we're going to take this one first because it will be the first one of the flowers that we're going to talk about today that will come into flower. Now, Hesperis is a biennial, so it's not in any of these seed trays at the minute. It is out in the field. That's because biennial means that it takes one full growing year for it to flower. So I sow my biennials, I always do, on Glastonbury weekend because it reminds me to sow my biennials. And I sow them into plugs like I do everything here. And then those plugs I generally plant out in September and October, and they'll overwinter really happily in the soil. Hesperis flowers really, really tall. In this field we get flowers that are around about my shoulder height. I know you don't know how tall I am, that's probably not that helpful. So each plant produces around 8 top-notch flower stems, and then you'll get a lot of side shoots coming out of that as well. So it's a really, really giving plant. The stems on Hesperis are really strong. I've never felt the need to net it or stake it in this field, and I'm on a very windy, exposed site. If you can remember to sow it at the right time and get it in the ground, then put it in the ground and it will look after itself. It's really easy to grow, doesn't have any massive soil requirements, doesn't tend to suffer from pest and disease, certainly for me here, and it's a brilliant first filler of the season. It combines really nicely with things like ranunculus and peonies and lupins, and then it will die off in the summer because it doesn't like the hot temperatures. Depending on what spring's like, Hesperis for me, planted outside, tends to flower at the back end of May. So it flowers along with Orlea and late ranunculus, going into peonies and lupins. And it combines really nicely with all those flower stems. And it is a really, really handy plant to grow for your cut flowers. I would highly recommend it. You can grow it in white or lilac, and it's a little bit more difficult to find, but seed growers now are starting to produce a really, really nice, soft, lilac-y colour. I would definitely recommend growing some Hesperis. Now, the next plant we're going to look at, I can pop out of this tray because I've got some here. And that is my first sowing of this year of a plant called Saponaria. As you can see there, I multi-sow Saponaria. And it grows quite happily like that. I wouldn't prick it out, I'd just grow it as a clump. I also sow Saponaria in the autumn, and then I sow it at the end of February, which is these guys here, and then I'll sow it again next week, so the last week of March. I'll be planting this first sowing this season out into the field in about a week or so, and I'll be planting them at a spacing of around 15 centimetres plant to plant, allowing them to grow into each other. One thing I would say about Saponaria is it does actually benefit from netting so that you get really good, long, strong stems. Otherwise, it can tend to decide to be a bit lazy and grow along the floor. So if you want the really good, strong, long stems, then I would recommend you put a bit of netting over the top of it to grow through. I have actually had success with direct sowing Saponaria into the field. It doesn't get as long stem length the later in the season you plant it, so that's something to be aware of. If you can treat it tough, so sow it earlier, you'll get a lot longer stem length from Saponaria. Saponaria came into my world because I was originally growing Gyp Covent Garden as a white filler, And maybe it's because I'm a little bit heavy-handed, but I always felt when I was arranging with the Gypsophilia Covent Garden stems, they were snapping quite easy, and I also didn't like the stickiness of them. And then in the seed catalogue, I saw this Saponaria, the white variety, and I thought, oh, I'll switch to that. And then I realised there was a pink variety, so I got that one as well. And they're absolutely lovely. You get such good, strong, long stems with Saponaria. Doesn't have that stickiness that Gyp has. And I just absolutely love it. I don't think there's any more I can say about it. And the third plant that I recommend as a great filler flower is this, which is a plug plant of Cynoglossum. Cynoglossum's also known as Japanese forget-me-not. It's a hardy annual. It likes quite free draining soil, so I can't get away with planting these out in my field to overwinter because my soil is too wet and too cold. But I do sow them in autumn and overwinter them as plug plants and then plant them out in March. Got another sowing of them growing on down there, which was sown at the beginning of March. And for Cynoglossum, you can actually sow it quite a lot later than I would recommend sowing a lot of the other hardy annuals. So I would sow Cynoglossum right up until the end of April, maybe actually even into the beginning of May, and then I would stop. So you can get Cynoglossum Mystery Rose, which is a pinky colour. You can get Fimber, which is a blue colour. And you can get Miss Marilyn, which is a lovely sort of ghostly, light bluey grey colour. Now, one thing I would say about Cynoglossum is if it likes your soil, then it will be a prolific self-seeder. It's not here because, like I say, my soil wouldn't house that seed over winter happily. But if you're in a slightly warmer climate and have slightly looser soil, the likelihood is once you plant it, you better like it because you're not getting rid of it. Now, Cynoglossum can be a little bit finicky when it comes to picking the flowers. You need to wait until the flower stem's pretty mature and all of the flowers on that stem are open. It's not a flower stem that takes kindly to be picked in bud. You more or less need to leave it until the first flowers that opened, which will be at the base of the stem, have started to turn to seed, and then you know it'll hold. It needs to be a fully mature flower stem for you to be able to pick it. If then it starts to wilt off on the top, that means it's got an airlock in the stem and you need to hot water dip your flower stem, which might be something that I'll cover in a future video if you'd like. But dipping the tip of a flower stem in boiling hot water is something that you can do to release the airlock. And it might help if you see your Cynoglossum limping off. I know it sounds a little bit like I'm describing the world's most troublesome plant, but it's really not. But let me know in the comments what you think about Cynoglossum. I think it's lovely. Now, number 4 on my list of filler flowers to grow. Some people might class it as a weed, but I don't. It is Feverfew or Tanacetum. So that is what my overwintered Tanacetum looks like now. That was grown from gathered seed from our flowers last year. And I sowed that in October last year, and that has been overwintering and is now ready to go out. Now, I know the smell of Feverfew can be a little bit divisive. It's kind of like a Marmite situation. It's been used in herbal remedies for migraines and things like that for a lot of years. And I must admit, I find the smell quite soothing. Aside from its smell, the other really good thing that I would say about Feverfew is because it germinates quite easily from seed. Once you've got it growing, it grows into a lovely big clump. It has brilliant strong stems. You won't have to net it or stake it or worry about anything like that. It'll grow in pretty much any soil conditions. It doesn't suffer readily from pests and diseases. Pollinators absolutely love it. And you will be able to collect the seed from the flowers when they finish this year and sow them again next year. The only thing to be aware of is, like Cynoglossum, if it likes your soil, which it probably will because it even likes my soil, it will self-seed. You can dig those seedlings up in the autumn or in early spring and move them if they're somewhere you don't want them, or pot them up and give them away to friends and spread the love of Feverfew. So Tanacetum you can pretty much sow at any time of the year. I would say just don't sow it in November, December, January and February because there's not enough daylight hours. Aside from that, you can sow it whenever you like. Just be aware that if you sow it in May and June, it won't flower that year. And then you're looking at more of a biennial cycle with it in terms of flowering. In this field, it flowers at around 70 centimetres stem length, branching top that has multiple flower heads on it. It just has a classic sort of filler daisy look to it. So if you're looking for a starter filler flower, I would definitely recommend you go with Feverfew. And last but not least, we have this. These are our overwintered Achillea the Pearl. Now, Achillea the Pearl produces branching stems with multiple flowers on the top in lovely, dainty little white flowers, a great alternative to perennial gyp. It'll grow in most soils, most conditions, but what I would make you aware of with Achillea the Pearl is it is a little bit susceptible to mildew, so you do need to think about air circulation around your plants more than you would with other varieties. And because it's a perennial variety, you need to remember with your plant spacings as well that it's not the size of the plant you plant, it's the size of the plant it will become. And if you think like that when you're planting it, giving it plenty of air circulation around the top, it's a lot less likely that this plant will get mildew. If we have a really, really hot summer, I would say just be aware that if you're watering, to water at the base of the plant, not onto the foliage, because again, that is something else which may encourage this plant to develop mildew. That being said, if you're looking for a perennial variety of filler flower that will get through a really cold winter and pretty much look after itself, then I would recommend Achillea the Pearl. So there we go. That's my 5 top filler flowers, 4 of which you can sow now. And if you're not already growing Hesperis, I would put a little note in your diary to sow some Hesperis in June this year so that you can have lovely, lovely flowers next June. I really enjoyed seeing your comments about your favourite umber fillers on the last video. Please let me know your favourite filler flowers in the comments below. See if they're similar to mine, or if you're growing something that I haven't covered. I might never have even heard of it. I love finding new flowers. So I really look forward to seeing your comments. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you have and you want to see more of what we're growing and sowing here. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.